my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
They're here.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
It's showtime.
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the VHS Strikes Back. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hey there, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to the VHS Strikes Back, the show where we dust off the old video player and go on a nostalgic journey to look at the good and the bad movies of yesteryear. Now, Chris, it's been a little while, hasn't it, since we've recorded? You're back on these fair shores. How was the holiday?
Amazing, Dave. 30 degrees. I didn't expect it in October. Social distancing out the window, basically, Dave. But just wear a mask. That's the best you can come up with. The hotel, there was nothing. Loved Greece. Never been ever. And we're definitely going to go back. I was so surprised how hot it was for October. I was expecting it to be like early 20s, with a bit of a breeze and that. And it was absolutely steaming. So loved it. Got in last night about 3:30. Got to bed 3:45. 4 o'clock, up at 9 o'clock, Dave, raring to go and record.
What a word.
And I'm saying that completely lying, so I'll probably be asleep after this. But no, and it was good because we had a couple of things to catch up on. So while I'm around the pool, Dave, getting a bit of a suntan, you got to do your due diligence.
Put your teeth back in.
Yeah, that one, Dave. Yeah, for our podcast. So I've been watching a couple of movies in the background, and one of them, Dave, that we're doing today.
Yeah. So what is it that we're going to be reviewing today, Chris?
We're doing the third, and it's not a trilogy anymore. The third in the Wes Craven horror. There's 4 in there at the moment. It's going to be 5 quad movie films. Scream 3, Dave, which was actually from 2000. So have you got any memories about that, Dave?
I have, and this was a request coming from Brent from Cinema Chat. So he's our Patreon, or one of our Patreons, and he's the producer for this episode. And of course, Brent was on with us, and we did Scream 2. And coming up to this one, this was when I was up in Altrincham, Chris, not far from you, where you are. And obviously, I quite like the first 2. I didn't see this one at the cinema, quite honestly. So around this time, sort of 2000, I was doing quite a lot of traveling. So away most weeks. So it's more about kind of stealing some DVD time when you could. DVD, VHS. It was still, it was 2000, wasn't it? So, I don't remember not really liking it, Chris, I have to say. It had all the same, or I thought it had all the same ingredients, but I couldn't really put my finger on why did I not like this one. And, my partner at the time, she was well into Scream, and I think probably more so than I was. And so that's why we ended up watching it quite early once it had been released on the video. But, I can't really say too many fond memories about this one, Chris. How about yourself?
You know what, Dave? The third and fourth. I saw this at the cinema. Third and fourth, I've seen at the cinema, and the reason was I mentioned it when we did the first and the second one. It was one of them VHS movies that Blockbuster was your friend. You go and get different things out, and we absolutely loved the Scream. The Scream series is quite synonymous with how when me and Sam getting together, as I've said before. And I don't mean to tread over old ground, but when this came out, I don't know how it came about, but the Odeon Cinema, the Trafford Centre, it'd only been open about 18 months or so. And I can't work out how this happened, but we ended up going to the premiere of Scream 3 in a preview screen in one of the little rooms there. I still remember, I think it was screen number 3. They 1 to 5 are really small. And then after that, they're partitioned off. I don't know if you've ever been to the Trafford Centre one day, but then you've got the massive IMAX ones.
Mm-hmm.
The big screens are on the other side, up from 6 to 20. So we went to see this, and Sam was, so it was July this came out, 2000. I think Sam was about 6 months pregnant at the time with Jordan. And honestly, we went, Sam loves horror movies, and I'm absolutely petrified. I'm like, fuck me, I don't want to go and see it. Even though I love the Scream movies, it's the jumping that gets me. And, my lovely daughter's 20, Dave, but the amount of times that I give Sam an elbow or I grabbed her or that I grabbed her stomach when we were watching this. It was roasting as well. But honestly, I have fond memories with this because it was so. It was one of them important movies because it just reminds me of that summer before Jordan was born. And remember Paul Sam being there in like this long dress, absolutely sweltering, Dave. 6 months pregnant, belly out there, and I literally was diving on her through the whole film, just the jumping and I'm terrible with these movies. So for me, I have really, really fond memories of it. However, watching it now, and we'll get into it, I think I've only ever seen it maybe twice. I think I've seen it once since I went to the cinema, Dave, and that would have been early 2000s, and it's been sat for nearly 20 years. So watching this now in 2020 was like literally watching a new movie. I remember who the killer was, but how they got there, I couldn't remember. When I was watching, I was like, oh, yeah. So it was almost like it was a fresh movie that we'd gone into this week.
Yeah, it's a little bit the same for myself. I'm sure I've seen it maybe 3 times maximum. I'm watching it. I certainly haven't seen it, for a good 15 years. And I just remember, I remembered who the baddie was, and like I couldn't quite remember how they got there. And yeah, so I could kind of go along with it. And I think they try and do a lot of the same things that they did in Scream 2, where they're trying to say, oh, well, is the killer this person? Is the killer that person? I don't know what it is. There's just something a little bit missing from this one. But
yeah,
I'm sure we'll get into that when we go into our review.
Yeah, and I must admit, Dave, there's one absolutely, and I'm sorry, Brent, because I know he's going to be listening to this. He does like to go at me, which I love when he gives me some proper aggro. But there's one part of this movie for me, from the minute you see it, I think it ruins the whole film. And it's going to be an absolutely ridiculous talking point. And you're just going to be like, Chris, this is one of your stupid comments. However, Dave, I do want to discuss it because it's very important when we get into the review.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I am intrigued with that one. So yeah, Chris, should we go into our trailer?
Let's go.
California Women's Crisis Counseling. My name is Laura. How can I help you?
Laura, I do have a crisis. I've killed someone, Laura. Are you listening to me? Huh?
Who is this?
Just one question. Do you think it's over, Sydney? Do you?
Whoever it is now taking credit for Maureen Prescott's murder.
But we know who killed Maureen Prescott. Billy Loomis and Stu Mocker. I mean, they even told Sydney how they did it.
Maybe there is a third killer.
Guys, this was about Cotton, and we are not in any danger.
We are not in any danger, says Candy, page 15.
Who the fuck is this?
Somebody who'd kill to know where Sydney Prescott is.
What do you know about trilogies?
Well, all I know about movie trilogies is that when they're one, all bets are off. Do you want to have this conversation with a polygraph? Is that a threat, detective? It's a threat. You'll know it. Was that a threat?
Here's how I see it. I've got no house, no bodyguard, no movie, and I'm being stalked. Because someone wants to kill me? No, because someone wants to kill you. So now, starting now, I go where you go. That way, if someone wants to kill me, I'll be with you. And since they really want to kill you, they won't kill me. They'll kill you. Make sense?
None.
You are dealing with the concluding chapter of a trilogy. 1, you got a killer who's going to be superhuman. Number 2, anyone, including the main character, can die. This means you, Sid.
Hello? Hello? Gail, Dewey, whoever, call me back. I can only hear myself.
I only hear you too, Sydney.
I am not dreaming. I am not crazy. He was there in Woodsboro.
It's not Woodsboro, Sid. Looks like Stab 3's back in production. You gotta be praying this movie keeps going.
Now we start off, we've got Cotton Weary, and he's got his own show. It's called 100% Cotton, and he's in some traffic, in the LA traffic, and he's contacted by Ghostface, who has a nifty little gadget voice changer thing going on there. and Ghostface is after the whereabouts of Sidney Prescott. Now, after Cotton Weary refuses to cooperate, Ghostface basically takes out his girlfriend and then Cotton himself. Now, Chris, what do you make to the opening of this movie?
I totally forgot, Dave, that Liev Schreiber actually gets killed. I completely forgot. And I remember Brent saying something really interesting when we were discussing about the fifth one that's going to be coming out. That basically Dewey, Gale Weathers, and Sydney have the force field on, don't they? Of like how are you going to kill them, basically? Because somebody has got to be a victim to make it worthwhile with the fifth one. It's never going to be Sydney. Never, ever going to be Sydney. But one of the other two, it possibly could stretch to them, but they are like Scream royalty. So when I watched this again, I completely forgot like he was his talk show host, bit of a Jerry Springer type guy, controversial shock jock. And then you see the whole thing with the voice change comes in. This is what's different in this one. We haven't just got Ghostface voice, have we? We've actually got a little thing where he'll talk as different people within the movie. And he's talking as a girl and she's like, oh, yeah, who are you? And blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you realise that it's Ghostface or who he is. And he's at his girlfriend's house. Now, he obviously gets killed, Cotton Weary. But honestly, Dave, I completely forgot. I mean, I was interested in the fucking Don Johnson white suit he had on. That was phenomenal. But yeah, I don't know about you, but there was a lot of this that watching it now, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot about that. Very interesting. And I'm not usually like that with movies. I'm usually like, I remember even the worst stuff, Dave, and I don't have to watch it once. But with this, for some reason, it's a bit of a memory blank.
Yeah, I don't think the start is that bad, actually. I think it's okay. I think it's a bit of a stretch, this voice changer on how perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, even now in 2020, you don't have that technology to get someone's voice exactly right. Because you paid for that Bane app.
Oh, we're not going down that route again. No, we're not.
Yeah, but I everything else is like very grounded in this Scream universe, isn't it? But I just find that just a bit too much of a stretch. But anyway, if you kind of get past that, I guess, it was a bit of a surprise. I didn't remember if he lived or this one through or got killed off. But if you look at the Scream formula, you get kind of a big name, don't you? Killed off in the first scene. And I was scratching my head and I was thinking, is Liev Schreiber big enough, to be that big actor / character killed off in the first screen? I guess as the years went on, he got bigger and bigger, I guess, didn't he? This is all still way before Wolverine Origins. Obviously his peak there. And I was thinking, is he? But yeah, it was kind of okay, I guess. But I was left scratching my head a little bit at how has Ghostface managed to get Liev Schreiber's voice exactly right, so that even his girlfriend, can't recognize the difference between him and this voice changer that you've got on the other side of the door.
Yeah, I agree. It even for 2000, Dave, was there that sort of technology? You'd no way, like you would say about the Bane app. I've never known anything like that, Dave. We're talking like the most, even Mission Impossible. You'd see it, wouldn't you? Like a voice thing, but that's like top line. This guy's got like something he's bought from the fucking pound shop or something, hasn't he? Like some kid's toy. But the voice, I mean, it's for the movie. I get it. I understand it, but I agree with you. Some of the leaps and some of the logical things go out the window, and I get it because it is almost like a parody of the other two films. This in some respects, but Dave, we need to talk about this serious issue that. From the minute I saw this, it's one thing I do remember actually from 2000, and it pisses me off through the whole movie. And I actually think it takes away from every single scene that she's in. Who the fuck cut Courtney Cox's fringe? That for me ruins the whole movie. It's fucking terrible.
It's not good, is it? There was do you remember the episode? It was one of the first series. I can't remember if it was series 1 or 2. I'm pretty sure it was one of the first. It might be the first one. Where she gets Courtney Cox or Monica gets Phoebe to cut her hair.
Yeah.
And then she's like,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
looks a bit weird, and she's like, this is how he wears it. You know how I know, Chris? Because they used to fucking play it over and over on the Blockbuster bloody videos. You know, you go into Blockbuster and they have the
Yeah.
same damn tape. Or you might not notice because
Yeah.
generally you're not in there for 3 hours. But when you work in there, it's like, oh, fuck's sake, I'm so sick of this tape this month. Because they used to change it every damn month. But they had the Friends one on. I'm sure it was the first series. And what Monica had asked for was to have it cut like Demi Moore. And Phoebe had heard Dudley Moore.
I remember it. I've got them on DVD. Yeah, I remember
And
it.
I think it might have been a bit of a spillover from that because, Chris, I know, you know, if we go back, you know, in our previous decades of life, we have not always had the best fashion taste. You know, you always think you do at the time, don't
Yeah.
you? You look back and you go, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Even in the 90s, I thought, this is never going to go out
Yes.
of fashion. Yeah, wrong about that. But yeah, I don't know whenever that fucking haircut was ever in fashion, to be honest. And it doesn't, it's not a good look, is it?
No, no, it's not. It's not at all. And I know it sounds really far fetched and ridiculous. And I understand she's got a different haircut because we've got the fake Gail Weathers there, who's got the haircut from the first one, haven't they, and all that stuff, or the second one. But it just looks like you see, it looks like you'd see like on a sketch in like Little Britain or some comedy thing, you know, like you say, or when you were a kid, like a kid cuts their
You
own
know what it
hair.
is,
It
Chris?
just
It's a fucking lockdown haircut, that is.
I had one, Dave. I know.
But I mean, yeah. So I think we're in agreement there. It's pretty terrible, and it does sort of take you out. Watching the whole movie, you never quite get used to it, do you? It's always just fucking hell. What were you thinking? Slade is another one, isn't it? You know, the fucking guy from
The
Slade.
bass player, is it? It's the bass player with the stackers. But it's genuinely, it's for me, it's completely off-putting watching her because I can't take her seriously, Dave. And I think the movie itself, the backdrop of the making a stab
Yeah.
3, aren't they? You know, he was supposed to be in it cotton wearing. Whoever the person who's the killer, and we don't know at this point, has got a script, but there's 3 scripts, so it could be anybody. So they don't know who's going to come. But fucking Dewey's there again, isn't he? You know, the limp seems to work on and off for David fucking Arquette. Every time he's in a different scene, he seems to limp on the other leg or something. It just because obviously he was mutilated, wasn't he, in the first one, and that's why he's not a cop anymore. But I don't know. There's something not right with it. And like I say, it feels sometimes like I'm watching a Saturday Night Live piss take of it, you know, and I've like skit of a movie.
I don't know if it was, in particular, the last scene. I don't know if it's the same house or something. It reminded me of Scooby Doo. You know, the one with
Yes. He's in it.
yeah,
The
from the
first one,
first
isn't he? Yeah, Matthew Thingy. He's
Matthew
called, isn't he?
Thingy. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, him. Yeah, him.
Well,
You know
one
what I
of
mean?
the
Matthew
killers from the
Thingy.
first one, he was Shaggy, wasn't he, in Scooby Doo?
Yeah.
It just felt a bit Scooby Doo for me, the whole thing. And I think the whole thing with Dewey and Gail Weathers, again, I'm left a bit, well, we've done all this. You know, will they, won't they, sort of thing. Are they going to get back together? They've obviously got latent feelings that are there, but they've split up, couldn't make it work and what have you. But I'm like, we've done all this. And that, I think that's the challenge, isn't it, with a trilogy? Because you could go the No Retreat, No Surrender route and just make it completely not attached at all. But, you know, we know that this is the third in a trilogy. And we get to see Randy, you know, he'd made a video, so I'd forgotten that he'd done that video. But for me, a trilogy is not just replaying the same things. You know, it's kind of it puts an underline under everything, doesn't it? But also makes you question what you've seen in the previous 2 films. And yeah, I just felt a lot of this was, it just felt a bit lazy. And like you said, like a kind of Scooby Doo, Saturday Night Live piss take of the whole thing.
Yeah, and you know what, David? Look, it's one of them, innit? It's a movie sort of what do they call it? Quadology, I suppose. I keep saying it wrong, but
Quadrilogy?
quadology. That is stuck with quadrilogy, maybe. Yeah, you could be right. And it's going to be is it a quintilogy soon when it becomes a fifth? That's pretty good. That for me,
Very
Dave.
good.
I've
Very
just
good.
made that up. It's probably not even a word. But anyway, and the first two I hold up in such high esteem, even though Brent never forgives me for going full
Heel.
on heel. The second one. This I agree. This is too obvious, and the whole Sydney Prescott interwoven story. You know, she's living on this sort of house. She's got electric gates. She's helping sort of like a Samaritans type thing for women who need refuge because they're being abused and that. You knew full well once she went down that route that Ghostface was going to ring her at some point, didn't you? Which he does. But I think what I find really weird is obviously the fake Gail Weathers. There's just some like terrible acting. I mean, I know she's playing an actor in it or an actress, and the other people are playing Dewey and all that. But they are fucking terrible, and that's where it becomes a parody of itself because the people playing the characters in the movie are trying to act, but they're actually like overacting. If that makes sense. It's stupid. You like breaking the fourth wall down, but I find this was terrible for me. It really did. It was watchable, but it's not a good movie. And I think like the security guard, the big meathead, and he's calling him Dewdrop, and then he's in his randomly all of a sudden he becomes an absolute bastard, doesn't he? Saying like to Dewey in the trailer when Ghostface kills him, and you're like, this is just. There's just some leaps and things like that are just nonsense for me.
I mean, you get Jenny McCarthy in there, don't you, as Sarah Darling? And what I will say is, Chris, in the 90s, did have a couple of Jenny's videos, which we probably won't be covering on this podcast.
Funny enough, Dave, so did I. But anyway, it's not an American Pie job, is it? Again, I haven't got any stories.
I don't remember any stories about it, no, but I do remember having a couple of videos. But anyway, so yeah, she gets killed off again. Kind of just standard stuff, really, wasn't it? We'd seen it all before.
Yeah.
Very much like when Sarah Michelle Gellar's character got killed off. I felt like. So yeah, just nothing really particularly new with that one. What else happens?
That's the problem, though, Dave, because it's the same scenario, isn't it? So you've got like at the house, the fake Gail Weathers house. He blows the house up, doesn't he? I mean, that's not been in any of the movies. They're trying to go for bigger and badder, and and all that stuff, but.
Where they're getting the faxes through and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't fit with the remit of the movies previously, and I get why they've done that, but I just felt that was just completely, for me, that was just something that was just not needed.
You know, one of the biggest problems I think that you've got with this movie, Neve Campbell's hardly in it, is she? Apparently, she was only she was only in it for she was only available for shooting for a few weeks, I think, and so you really notice that she's just not in the movie at all. I have to say, again, the thing is with Scream, it's so grounded, isn't it? I mean, it's grounded in the real world. I still think the way whoever plays Ghostface is like Bambi on ice. When they're chasing after someone, all right, usually Ghostface eventually kills them, but not after he's slipped over and fell over like 20 times. So, yeah, you've kind of got that's slightly unbelievable, but it's still grounded. You can kind of go with it. But I think with the whole voice changer thing, and then you've got Neve Campbell, so Sydney, when she's kind of having the dream within a dream, about her mother, and she comes up to the window, doesn't she? Do you remember that bit? She comes up to the window and it's all very creepy. She's like zombified kind of thing. Again, this steps into the kind of supernatural to me. Because I know it's supposedly a dream, but how does she know everything ties back to her mother at that point? She doesn't, does she? And I found that aspect as well just a little bit off with the whole, what we'd seen in the first two movies.
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of? And you're right, it's Wes Craven. You know what it reminded me of, Dave? Fucking Nightmare on Elm Street. That was straight out of A Nightmare on Elm Street. You're sleeping. I was expecting Freddy to come fucking knocking his claws on the
Yeah,
window,
yeah.
tapping the window, going, "Hello, Sydney." You know, that for me was Wes Craven 101. I totally agree. But one of the things with this, Dave, and I think that's right, it's a great spot with a mum. It doesn't make sense. But also, when the house gets blown up and it's a gas leak in it and all that stuff, and it blows like a
Mhm.
bomb sort of thing, but the Ghostface has done it. When Dewey stops Ghostface from killing Gale and he's at the vehicle and he shoots, well, we think he shot Ghostface, and he rolls under the car. There's at least 2 or 3 times in this movie where Ghostface is within the vicinity of just killing them. And Dewey just takes it that he's just disappeared from nowhere. He's rolled under a vehicle, and then he hugs Gale. He's talking to the fake Gale. The one who plays Sydney comes over, and he's comes down the hill, and he's chatting to her. And I'm like, why are you
Yeah.
so casual? Because obviously in the first one we had that whole car scene, which is so. Oh, was it the
Second
second one
one.
where they're in?
Yeah.
It's fucking awful that. But in this, you don't get that. But they just take it for absolute granted that he's fucked off, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I just found there was at least 2 or 3 scenes there, Dave, where Ghostface was exposed, like you say, Bambi on ice, and he's just killed somebody. But Gale and Dewey are just talking like it's nothing, like he's not even there. I just didn't. I just think that was too, like you were saying about Neve Campbell not being available. That was too obvious that they were filling stuff. But the concept of a masked killer who can jump out at any time, but they were just talking about their relationship there and building that, and I'm like, this is nonsense.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that bit, but I agree. I remember it now. It's like the music and everything changes, doesn't it? Like you say, he's
Yeah.
kind of rolled under the car, and that's it. He's disappeared into the ether, and it's like they've suddenly got Dory memories. It's like, everything's okay now. It's like, well,
Yeah, I love you.
he
Yeah,
could still be in the general vicinity, and fucking launch a knife at you if he really wants to.
exactly. I didn't buy into that at all, Dave. And I think you're right. As we're talking about it, I mean, Randy's sister with the video, and I'm jumping back slightly. That was another. It was supposed to be a bit like a thing. Like, is she involved in it because of Randy's death? But she just turns up on set with a video and then pisses off. And I'm like, that's not had the effects I think you wanted it to do.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess with a genuine trilogy, Chris, I think you do have that complete story, don't you? Whereas it almost feels to me it's like, well, Randy has to be in there because you need that kind of meta awareness. That's the thing about the Scream franchise as well, isn't it? It's kind of a nod and a wink to the camera, and it's like taking the mickey out of the whole genre. you know. So in the previous two, we've had Randy doing that. He's been our commentator, and he tells us what the rules of horror movies are, and then it all kind of plays out. Again, you get the black guy getting killed off, and it's like, well, yeah, you've just called out the trope, and then you've just followed along completely with the trope. It just seemed a bit off. But I think Randy's sister, she was only there to deliver the videotape, because I think they'd killed Randy off in the second one, and then I think they get to the third one, they're like, oh, fuck, what do? We can't just introduce Randy version 2 for the third one, So, oh no, he's kind of recorded a video, and that's how they get that kind of meta awareness crowbarred in there.
Yeah, and we're talking about some of the things as well. Then you're right. It's funny that we always say, don't we? Sometimes we have a better episode if we're disagreeing, but some of the stuff in this movie is fucking terrible. I mean, I know I'm going to slightly jump, but it's the fact that obviously the killer has to tell you everything, doesn't he? Like step by step. Roman's at this house. He's pissed up. The movie's gone to shit. Or he's not pissed, but you think he's pissed. This house has got special corridors. But what I found utterly nonsense is when Sydney's been chased by Roman and he's exposed himself as a brother. It's the mom. They got like Billy Loomis to kill his mom and all because of his dad was having an affair. It's when Dewey and Gale are trying to get into the what they call it, the panic room, but they're telling the killer what they're going to do. And all you can hear is this, like them, Dewey going, "Let's go down here and knock the door open. We can't get in here. Let's try the other door." And they're walking through, narrating to Roman where they are. And I'm like, this is terrible. They've obviously pre-recorded this in the studio afterwards, but it was really bad. And I'm like, but you wouldn't tell the killer where you're going if he's got your mate and he's about to kill your mate, would you? You would try and be a little bit elusive.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that bit for me stood out more than anything watching this. It was really, really bad. I just felt like that is just not what the Scream franchise is about at all for me. Because you want them to turn the tables a bit like what Sydney did in the second one and flip the lid so they become the ones who's chasing the killer, you know, like that sort of thing. But that bit is terrible, I thought.
Yeah, I don't think it was good, and I guess in that whole kind of final act, you know, again that's what made it feel really Scooby Doo for me. But you know, if you look at the box office, it didn't actually do that badly. You know, we've had a few in our Comics on Trial podcast. We've had a few defenses of like bad word of mouth, you know, as killed it at the box office. But if you look at like Scream 2, it made 172 million. In Scream 3 made 161. So you say it's a little bit down, but not anything significant. You know, it cost a little bit more as well. It costs 40 million, but you know, still commercially, you'd have to put that down as a success, wouldn't you? I think it's just.
Yes.
I think it's people more retrospectively kind of looking back at it and you know, it just doesn't stand up. And because we've watched the other two so close together as well, I just think it's a pale imitation of the others.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, there was a big scandal, wasn't there? The Harvey Weinstein thing, Dave. That's like, you know, Lance Henriksen's the director saying basically, you know, Sydney's mum, Maureen Prescott, had just been abused,
Yeah.
hadn't she? And that's where the brothers, so that's part of the story. But there was a massive backlash saying, like, was that some sort of nod to Harvey Weinstein? Which it might have been. But
Harvey Weinstein is a complete dick, a complete fucking
Yes.
absolute monster. But I refuse to believe he's the only one. I'm pretty sure he's just, you know, it's the whole fucking system there that allowed him to get away with it for so long, I think. So I don't know if it was a complete nod. You might be right. I don't know if it was singling him out in particular. I just think there was loads of those fucking See You Next Tuesdays.
yeah. Oh, Dave, that was the way it was. The casting couch, men as well. It was men and women, wasn't it? You wanted to make your way up. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so there's actually, if you ever get a chance, there's a great show that was on about, well, we watched it in lockdown, called Hollywood on Netflix, about like sort of like the I think it's just after World War II, the late 1940s, where the like soldiers go and try and make it, and it ends up just being purely about prostitution, where they're like gigolos to a lot of these old women producers and all this stuff. Dave, it's really good show, really good show.
Cool.
Yeah, it's of its time. So you've got the lovely like cars and all that, but it's about 4 or 5 episodes. But honestly, it's a cracking show. It really is.
I tell you what else was and I will. I'm not just dismissing that. I will seek that out at some point. I tell you what was interesting and made this one feel a little bit different as well. We had a couple of significant cameos, didn't we?
Yes.
So the first one was, I don't know if it was the first one, but the biggest one probably was Carrie Fisher. Obviously, she appears, you know, she's there, and apparently she's not Carrie Fisher. She's just looks like Carrie Fisher, and she's just saying that, you know, she slept with George Lucas. Again, I think that's possibly just a wink to, you know, what we find out later about Sydney's mum. But the other one, which I found quite amusing, Chris, was we got Jay and Silent Bob in there.
Dave, them two fuckers are going to haunt me forever after Mallrats, aren't they? Let's be honest, Dave. It's still fresh, that Mallrats. It really is fresh in my head.
The thing is, though, so, I mean, we obviously you've been away, so we haven't had a chance to speak about it, but Brett Scott, like, had messaged me and said, in fact, no, he tweeted, hadn't he? He tweeted our main account.
Yeah.
Saying, have you seen this? And it's Kevin Smith talking about kind of Bruce Willis. And I had no idea there was this whole needle between Kevin Smith and Bruce Willis. And it had all come back. Well, initially, I think Kevin Smith quite liked him. They did some work on one of the Die Hard movies, and he was talking about, you know, basically Kevin Smith had written this whole piece, prompted by Bruce Willis, but the studios didn't like it. And then so Bruce Willis is just like, well, answer me this question. Who's your second choice to play John McClane? And I think at the time he probably thought, that's nice, balls out, get in your own way. But then apparently he was just an absolute nightmare on Cop Out. And then they haven't really spoken again since, until I think it was last year. And out of the blue, Bruce Willis sends him a couple of text messages, and he's asking about these photos that he needs to send through. And so Kevin Smith was talking about, you know what, guys, and he's on his podcast about this, and he's saying, you know what, life's too short. If you haven't spoken to anyone, time is a great healer, and waxing lyrical. And then he's on a later interview, and he says, apparently, Bruce Willis sent it. He rang the wrong Kevin. He was after a different Kevin. It was fucking brilliant. But yeah.
That is correct. But that is a great interview. That it's not an interview; it's Comic Con, isn't it? And I love Kevin Smith's paraphrasing of, I'm going to tell you a story. It doesn't happen. It's actually fiction. But if it does, it involves Bruce Willis and me. But obviously, what I'm going to tell you is all fake. So this is just a fictional story that I'm just making up. He says, "I'll let the man have his time, but when he's not here, I'll tell the story." He's basically saying when Bruce pops his clogs, he'll tell everyone. But that's bad, that, Dave. And I love Bruce Willis as well. So, Last Boy Scout, obviously, last week.
Yeah, well, I think because you call out the co-host, and I think Brett was sort of making sure there was a balance to it. Apparently, I mean, it's not just from Kevin Smith, is it? I know you love John McClane and the characters that Bruce Willis plays, but, I think it's fairly well known that he is a bit of a tool.
Yeah, and I think Stallone and Arnie. I think Arnie's always been quite grounded. I'm sure he's had his moments, Dave, but I know Stallone was a bit up his own ass at one point. But I think as he's got older, he's become a lot more humble about it. He understands. He's probably gone back and apologized to people. One of the best examples of that, Dave, and I know it won't mean a lot to a lot of our outside the UK listeners. So apologies, guys, but I've said it before, my favourite TV show of all time is a show called Alvida's Pet. I watch it on a loop. I always talk about it. And my favourite character in that show is Oz, who is played by Jimmy Nail. Now, Jimmy Nail was in Evita. He's been in a lot of Hollywood stuff. He's in a lot of Broadway stuff as well, off the back of Alvida's Pet. And I'm on the Alvida's Pet fan site on Facebook, and there's people there who actually worked on the series. And I've read loads, but the second series, the first series, he was great. He was like an ex-convict in real life. He got the job by mistake, turned up in his fucking work gear, and he just was dead abrupt and obnoxious. And he went, perfect, you'll do as Oz. The second series, he thought he was some director, producer, and he just absolutely run roughshod off the whole series. He was a fucking nightmare. And apparently in real life, he's an absolute arse, an absolute knobhead. I've never read his biography. I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I don't want to ruin the character of Oz because I love Oz, but he's supposed to be one of the worst, Dave. And he didn't even have half the career Bruce Willis did. All he ever did really was that one when he sang with Madonna in Evita. Yeah. He was in that, but he's an arse, and I hate that because he's he's probably one of my favorite TV characters ever. So I get it. They always say don't meet your heroes. I've done that plenty of times when I worked in TV, and not necessarily heroes, but people you thought were normal and grounded. When you meet them, they're absolute pricks, and it's awful because it's a big act. And I've said it before. Some of the greatest entertainers in the UK are supposed to be horrible, Dave, in real life. But you wouldn't think it. You think, oh, what a lovely person. No, Dave, just horrible. Apparently,
I think. The likes of social media today can be pretty toxic, can't it? Really horrible environments, or it can be. But I think things like that, I think it makes it harder for the actors to be absolute shithouses. Because if you think about it, if you're a Bruce Willis and you're just a dick to everyone on set, but the work keeps coming in, you're still a big blockbuster, you get on the red carpet, you smile and you wave to the crowds and stuff, you're kind of getting away with it. Whereas surely, today, I don't know, maybe I'm just guessing there. I'd like to think that there are less people who are just absolute bell ends in the industry now.
Yeah, I would as well. I would, Dave. I really, really would. But you still see it. I mean, look at people like Justin Bieber and that, Dave. He's he he's supposed to. He goes on all these TV shows. He does a lot of stuff where he's like surprises fans and that. He's a big friend with Ellen. Well, in fact, scrap Justin Bieber. Ellen DeGeneres, Dave. My mother-in-law loves Ellen DeGeneres. Watches the show. I've watched loads of her best of bits. A bit like James Corden. I've heard some bad stuff about James Corden. This is just speculation, but Ellen DeGeneres has been absolutely caught out with her pants down, literally, because of the way that she treats her staff. I've heard stuff on loads of podcasts over the years about her saying that she isn't this nice person. She's supposed to be horrible. Lo and behold, Dave, calm as a bitch. And they've made a few people examples of, some of the producers and that, saying it's like really bad, but she's up there with them. And that's what happens. If you're going to treat people badly, people now, and you're right, this has gone way off what we're supposed to be reviewing, but I think if you treat people badly, eventually, you're not going to get away with it in this day and age, Dave. You can only do it for so long. People are just going to go, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care anymore. I'll just put something on Twitter, and it ruins people, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, Chris, as you said, let's get back to the task in hand. So,
sorry, Dave.
What do you reckon to, the way they tried to make this feel like a trilogy? So Roman, it turns out, he's the director, spent all his life, obviously, coming up with this plan, become a famous Hollywood director, but he'd actually set everything in motion. So he's Sydney's half brother, both born to the same mother. He'd actually shown Billy Loomis the footage of his father with their mother, and so actually it was Roman who set off all of the events right back from that first Scream movie. So, what did you think of that?
I'm going to say one of my favorite lines, Dave. Bullshit from China. Because it ruins and actually discredits the first two movies, this plot twist, because there's been no foreshadowing, there's been nothing about this. I know you can stretch it and say, I showed in the videos, but what are the chances, Dave, in Sydney's life that she's met nearly 4 or 5 serial killers? Do you know what I mean? The chances in anybody's life are far straight. And I know in a movie you can just do whatever you want. That for me has got to be one of the weakest plot twists I've ever seen in a lot of movies. And I even said that with the No Surrender trilogy, because this is terrible. It really is. I mean, I kept thinking, where do I know this guy Roman? And he was in a TV show. I think it was The Line of Fire. Not Line of Fire. It's a American film based on a TV show based on a lot of soldiers. We used to watch it, me and Sam, on Bravo a couple of years ago, and it was quite good, Dave. But yeah, I don't think he's convincing at all.
No, I don't think it is. For me, it feels really forced. I mean, because you show a young lad, your dad have an affair with this woman. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to don fucking a ghost face, cowl and then go off and start stabbing people. The second movie, you can kind of buy that, it's a bit of a copycat type thing. They'd been inspired by that original idea. But yeah, I just found it, again, for this particular movie, just that it stretches believability just too much for me. And I appreciate what they were trying to do. They were trying to tie it all back, put it neatly in a bow as a trilogy. But yeah, I just didn't buy it.
No, I didn't. And I was just researching as you were talking, Dev. I agree. So it's The Unit he was in. It was a cracking show from 2006 to 9. He did like 70 episodes. Also, he's in Scrubs. If anybody, I never really watched Scrubs, but I know that gets quite a cult following. But this is Roman, by the way, Dave. But no, I agree with it. It doesn't hit anything for me. It just literally ended up being a clock watcher towards the end. I was like, oh my God, is this going to go on for much longer? I think it's about 1 hour and 50 it's on for. It's too much. It's too much for me. And it's a shame because it is literally the second one. I don't necessarily think they cashed in. I know they made it very quickly. They were literally finished it and went straight into the second one, didn't they? Which is great because of the phenomenon of it. This one is a couple of years after the second one, and it's got everything about Hollywood just pissing about for me. I know it's Wes Craven's baby, but it just doesn't hit the mark. I just think it's just an absolute parody
Well,
of the
there's
first
no
two.
more parody for me than when they actually shoot Roman, don't they? And he's got the old
Yeah.
bulletproof vest on, and then Dewey's got about what do you reckon, 50 bullets in that 6-shooter?
He's done well there,
He
yeah.
just,
It's like a
he
cat
just
gun, wasn't
keeps
it?
fucking shooting him in the chest, and they're like, shoot him in the head. You know, they're all just stood there, like, you know, while he's, you know, running on the spot kind of thing, or Roman with the shaking the knife about in the air, and they're all like, shoot him in the head, and then finally shoots him in the head. It was just, I don't know if it was trying to be funny, but it just missed the mark. When did Scary Movie come out? I should probably know this.
It's got to be. It's either late 90s or early 2000s, hasn't it? It must have been after the second one at
I
least.
reckon it's about the same. Oh, 2000. So the same year. I don't know. It just feels Scary Movie, you know. Just a not funny version of it. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it just unfortunately it kind of misses the mark for me. And I can put this down to, I don't know whether it's laziness. Again, if you're part of a franchise, you want to make sure that you're hitting the same notes that keep bringing the fans back. You know, you want to bring all the things that they loved about what they've seen before, and you want to bring them something fresh
Yeah.
and, you know, like a bit of a new take, so they're not just watching the same old thing. And it's on that second piece that I just think they failed on this one. And I don't know whether it's because they only had Neve Campbell, because really it's Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. They're like the trilogy, aren't they? But really, it's not
Yeah.
equal. You know, Neve Campbell is the star. And because you've only got her on screen for a short amount of time, you know, I can only imagine that that's created a load of rewrites, and then you have to kind of fill time a little bit with some of the other characters. So, you know, for me in the first two, Gale Weathers and Dewey were just like side characters, whereas here they're trying to make them main characters. But then again, there's no one, is there? No one's a main character in this, I don't think.
No, I agree with that, and I think that's what carried the first two. Is Neve Campbell's acting is phenomenal. She's a great actress, Dave. She really is. In this one, you're trying to balance the three of them. I think you're right. I think that like third split that they all seem to get, it's just not enough. It's too. It needs to be Sydney, and they're just there as a byproduct of it, helping her and supporting her. You know, Gail's doing the same thing in the third movie. She's still being a bitch. Dewey's the same. It's the same gormless act he's playing, Dave. I just don't. I'm with you. I just completely don't go with it, the whole thing. I just think it's a completely waste of time. If they couldn't get Neve Campbell on from the start doing what she does, and you're going to use her as almost like a cameo in her own movies that have created a career, then don't do it at all, I think.
And the fact that this cost, you know, nearly double what the second one cost as well, it's just, you know, again, the good thing is with the slasher movies, you can do them at such a low budget, can't you? And then when you're using 40 million for the budget, and you're trying to throw in these big explosions and things, actually, that's the only real thing I can think where the budget went. Can't think what else would look particularly expensive, but yeah. Who knows? Where did the budget go, Chris? Probably went up people's noses, I reckon. So, allegedly.
Yeah, I'm glad you said noses, Dave. Anyway, but should we get into our review? So, Dave, I'll go first this week. I think, look, we've gone off on a couple of tangents there about different things with people, but I think it's because the movie's just not interesting. If we're all in and we're taking the mick and that, then fair enough, and we'll absolutely tear it to shreds. You know, I could be the worst for that. This movie's it's got a lot of things that should work. It just, for me, it's a complete misstep. I don't necessarily think it's the worst movie I've ever seen, because it's not. It's watchable, but it's also something that, if you're like you say, Dave, you're a completionist. So this is the sort of thing that if you were going to have a Scream marathon, you'd watch this whether you like it or not. And I think that's where it stands. If you really want to complete the 4 movies, this out of all 4, and I haven't watched the 4th one for a couple of years, but I seem to quite enjoyed the 4th one. This is just a joke. It's a parody of itself. It's not good. I just think, I mean, fucking Courtney Cox's Fringe is a disgrace. We spent a lot of time on that, but but it's so distracting. It's like you're watching what she's saying, but not taking in what the dialogue is. 'Cause I'm looking at her head going, who the fuck thought that was a good idea in 2000? That is a terrible haircut. And it really does take it away from her acting in the movie, sadly. Like I say, Neve Campbell's still great in it. She's still Sydney. She's still, being chased and that. She holds it together as best she can, but everyone else is just an absolute joke. I know they said in the second one, people were queuing up to come in it. By this one, they weren't queuing up, Dave, at all. It's fucking rubbish. And the fact you got a cameo from Jay and Silent Bob, that's where the Saturday Night Live feel for me comes in, when it's just like an absolute joke. It's just like a load of comics got together to take the piss out of it. Like you say, like Scary Movie, just exactly the same. So I'm going to send it, Devin. I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days. I'm going to send it to Elm Street. I just don't think it's horrendous, but it's certainly not one. If you said pick a movie in the Scream franchise, this one would be at the bottom for me. What about yourself?
Very good. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of the same beats, hasn't it? Obviously, you got Ghostface, iconic villain there. You've got Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette. So it feels nostalgic straight away. It feels familiar, but it just doesn't get anywhere near the heights of the other 2 movies for me. I know. I think yourself and Brett were saying Scream 1 and 2 were very, very close. You just aired on the side of Scream 1, Brett just on the side of Scream 2. I think what I said at the time was, because the first one was so different from anything that I'd seen before, it was just fresh. The second one was replaying a lot of the same things. So even though I can appreciate the second one was a really good movie, for me it was the first one that was the best as well. So for me, it's like diminishing returns. I think on this third one now, I'm like, it just feels lazy to me. Now, again, I only ever look at the ratings after I've gone back to rewatch something, but it is interesting. You've got on IMDb, you've got a 5.6. I mean, it has to be pretty horrendous to get below a 5, doesn't it? For IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes audience score is 37. Tomato score is 39%. So, I don't think, even though it's commercially quite successful, I don't think critically, or even from the audience perspective, this is one of the favourites. It's definitely the weakest of the trilogy that we've seen so far. We've got to watch. It probably doesn't fit into our timescale for the podcast, but I've got to watch the 4th one before the 5th one comes out now.
Yeah.
I actually, off the top of my head, I can't remember anything about it, so I definitely do have to watch it. But yeah, I just think it just feels lazy. It feels out of step with the world that was created in the first 2. I didn't buy the whole, Roman was the architect of everything kind of thing. It just, what it feels like? It feels like Rise of Skywalker, where they get to the last one, or what they thought was the last one, and then it's just like, fuck, how can we kind of wrap this all up now? Just, the kind of voice changing thing, I didn't like that at all. The fact that they could just mimic anyone's voice, and the cadence of their voice and everything. So yeah, there's a lot I didn't like. I don't think it was terrible, but I did find myself looking at my phone, looking at my watch, and just, willing this one to be finished, to be honest. I think I'm going to go Elm Street as well, but I do think it's on the higher side. It's not terrible. I mean, we've gone it all in on it. It is kind of watchable, though I can't say I'll be in a rush to watch this one again. But yeah, really want to watch the 4th one now, just to tickle that completionist part of me.
Yeah. You can text me about that, Dave, because I won't be.
Well, I think the 4th one.
Bad,
I don't know why I've got it in my head that the 4th one is better, but I just can't actually remember anything about it. And that's the other thing about this one. So, like you said, I've watched going to admit something now. I've watched Usual Suspects once, Chris. But fuck me, I can... Well, all right, I might not remember all the nuance of the story, but everyone fucking remembers the ending of that. Because it was so memorable. And actually, the irony of it, Chris, that in the end, Kevin Spacey's been there in plain sight all this time and is the fucking villain.
Well, yeah. Is that real life or
life imitating art, isn't it? Or art imitating life.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what though, Dave? I bought that on video after watching it for the first time. Like we were talking about the Britannia thing, they used to send them to your house. And I'm with you. I've only ever seen it once. Absolutely think it's a fucking phenomenal movie. Gabriel Byrne, brilliant in it, but I have only seen it once.
So I think with the memorable movies, you only have to see them the once, don't you? And this one, I normally write a few bullet points for the movies, but I don't need any more. I can, even certainly the terrible ones, you just have recall on it. With this one, I'm thinking, what order did they get killed in? I remember the house blowing up. It was just forgettable, wasn't it? It didn't build the tension like, the previous ones did. And just ultimately lazy for me.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. Absolutely with you. And Dave, so in moving slightly on from that, we have a little bit of a trailer for next week's episode, haven't we?
We absolutely do. So do you want to tell everyone what we're going to review next week?
No.
So this one, in fact, before we get into the trailer, what I will say is, so thanks again to Brett. So he was the producer for today. Brett, I'm sorry for us shitting all over your movie there. Hopefully you still enjoy it. I'd love to know what you think about it, actually. We'll catch up offline on the messenger. And also flanked by our executive producers, Chris. So this is flanked by John Hammond, by Tony Farina, and Glyn Davis as our executive producers. And Chris, we have another Patreon. So we've got the guys over at the Predator Minute, and they've come straight in there at the Top Gun level. So they're going to be on with us in a few weeks, and we'll be covering Ninja 3, The Domination, which I've already seen the trailer, and by God, I think we're going to get our teeth into that one. So thanks a lot, guys. And if you want to support us, then if you could head over to patreon.com/the VHS Strikes Back, and there's all kinds of different levels from £1 upwards, or giving you different kind of things like early access to the shows, executive producer status. If you really have a few £1,000s burning a hole in your pocket, we'll all fly you to Vegas. We'll all do a show there at the McFly level. But that would be great. And other free kind of ways, obviously rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That would be great as well. Now, Chris, for our next week, we think we're going to be doing a little movie, which I'd never heard of. But this one is going to be one of Glyn's, isn't it? So what is it we're going to review?
It's Remo Williams, Dave, from 1985. Action movie. We talked about this offline, but I'm still trying to work out, have I seen this? I'm not sure. But yeah, it's an interesting movie.
It certainly is. I have watched it. I think I might have seen this before, but we'll talk about that next week, I'm sure. Now, Chris, let's get into our trailer.
America's top security experts have chosen this man.
Don't take any chances. This guy's a killer.
For a special mission. But first, he's got to pass one little test.
Speak English. Does your nightingale sing? Hold it! Like a baboon with 2 corrupt feet. However, I think I can do something with him.
Goodbye, Mr. Crow.
Who's he?
No more Boy Scouts.
Take a look at this. High-altitude reconnaissance probe.
Yes, we make that.
There is none. Doesn't exist.
these men will rob America of her might.
He won't be with us for much longer.
Unless someone
Relax.
can stop them.
Concentrate. This is not time for prayer.
Remo Williams. The adventure begins.
What are you watching?
Your country's one contribution to the art.
It's a soap opera.
It is apparent to me that you know less than nothing. Place your hands behind your head. I did not say keep them there.
Before he's through, he'll learn to move faster than a bullet.
Excellent.
Not bad, huh?
Hear the heartbeat of an enemy.
John, I need to borrow him for a while.
And leave no footprints in the sand.
Some joker walks into one of my plants, snoops around, walks right out again, and now you're telling me he doesn't exist.
Across town, a man has found his head blown off.
Perfect accident.
And you telling me he's gonna get away with it, huh? And we can't stop him?
You can stop him, son.
It'll be my pleasure.
Now, based on the Destroyer novel series that sold over 30 million copies, America's favorite tough guy comes to the screen in a movie big enough to hold him. Remo Williams. The adventure begins.
Now, Chris, if someone wanted to get in contact with us, how would they get in contact with us?
Well, guys, like Dave has just said, we've got some phenomenal Patreon. So thanks a lot, guys. If you want to get over there, patreon.com/VHS Strikes Back. And there's all sorts of tiers there from £1 all the way up to the McFly. We say it every week, but if you do want to support us, we really, really appreciate it. So get over there, guys, and have a bit of a look. And you also get access to the episodes a couple of days earlier than when we release it to to the general public sort of thing. So if you're into that and you want to get ahead of the game, just have a look on John Hammond's Twitter. He absolutely is one of our biggest cheerleaders, Dave. He loves it, doesn't he? And he keeps saying that I should have my own my quotes on front of the video covers, Dave. I'm not sure they did ever get released with some of the things I've said. But anyway, get over there and have a look at that, guys. And if you want to follow us on social media, at VHS Strikes Back on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to email us, the VHSstrikesback@gmail.com. So, Dave, phenomenal. Great episode again. It's a shame it went down like that with the Scream trilogy at this point. But next week, mate, I'm sorry, Glyn. He's asked for mercy, Dave. Is he going to get it? I don't know. But I tell you what, if it's as bad as some of the turkeys we've watched, I'm going all guns barrel.
Well, we're going to be true to ourselves, aren't we? I think I have watched it, like I say, but I just don't really have a good memory of it. Tipping my hat slightly as to what I think of that one. So, and then after that, Chris, we're getting on to Halloween, aren't we? So we've currently got a live poll. I think by the time this one drops, it'll have come in. So we're going to watch one of the classic kind of horror movies. We all know how you love a good horror movie, Chris. So really looking forward to that one as well.
Well, Dave, that's true. And you're right. You're completely right. However, Dave, in the next couple of weeks, we are going to have a movie by a living legend as well. And that's all I'm going to say. It's phenomenal.
Yes. I think I know which one that one is. So
let's say no more.
So, Chris, do you want to get on to the next episode? They get my pies out of the oven. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
Chris, it's been great. Great to speak to you again, and I'll speak to you next time.
Bye.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?
We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
I'll be back. That's odd.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Wax on, wax off.
Get to the chopper!
One ring to go. All right. Ding, ding.
something. I'm crazy. You just a stupid fool.
Yeah, maybe
you
stupid.
something.
They ain't breathing heavy.
He's a fool. He's stupid.
I see you at 6 months.